Welcome to Module 7, The Truth Can't Be Handled by You. On our journey to write clear and unambiguous requirements, we have to lay a foundation that includes some basic rules and guidance on the use of the English language. Not everyone's favorite subject, we know, but relevant for the skills that we are building. To that end, in Module 5, we covered the importance of correct and consistent spelling. We also covered punctuation in Module 5 and saw how the meaning can change if punctuation is ignored or used in the wrong places. And in Module 6, we explained why we want to avoid using pronouns that refer back to things that are mentioned someplace else. In good requirements writing, we state the nouns and objects in each requirement. We need to cover one more element of English grammar before we can move on to other, lighter topics. We need to cover the active voice and the passive voice. What is the active voice and how is it different to the passive voice? In the active voice, the subject is performing the action. For example, Da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa. I go to the gym 5 days a week. In these two sentences, the subjects, Da Vinci and myself, did or do the action. The verbs are in the active voice. If we were to rewrite these sentences in the passive voice, they would look like this. In the passive voice, the subject is having the thing done to it. It is passive, hence the term passive voice. The Mona Lisa was painted by Da Vinci. The gym is frequented by me 5 days a week. Has this got anything to do with requirements? Well, if you search online for the use of active and passive voices, every reference you come across will tell you that the active voice should be used when you want the sentence to be clear and direct. Bingo! That's Requirements 101 in a nutshell, clear and direct. So the active voice should be the default voice for the majority of our requirements. We want to be clear. We want to be direct. We are big fans of The Godfather. Heck, we even think Godfather 3 was good. Trust us, it's not all that bad. Imagine one of the most famous lines from the trilogy when Don Vito Corleone says, "I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse." Clear and direct. Imagine the same statement in the passive voice. "He will be made an offer by me that can't be refused by him." This sounds more like wisdom from Master Yoda than Don Corleone. And who could forget this iconic statement from A Few Good Men? "You can't handle the truth." And imagine it in a passive voice. "The truth can't be handled by you." What a mess. It simply does not work. The passive voice here does not work. Time to grab that pen and paper and have a go at converting these passive voice sentences to the active voice. Hopefully you came up with something like these sentences. Jan ate 6 donuts for breakfast. VJ cleans the house on Sundays. Learning never exhausts the mind. I'm sure you'll agree with me, clearer and crisper sentences now that they're in the active voice. Let's get a little more serious and work with some requirements. Requirement 1. A submersible mixer shall be provided for the aeration zone of tank 414. This is a passive voice requirement. The submersible mixer is not doing anything here, and who is doing the actual providing? What are we actually trying to achieve with this requirement? If it is indeed related to the scope of supply, we want to see something more like this. The contractor shall provide a submersible mixer for the aeration zone of tank 414. Better now that it is in the active voice, but still not a great requirement, as we shall see later on in this module. How about an actual design requirement for this mixer? It is very common for us to fall into the trap of using the passive voice for design requirements. For example, the submersible mixer shall be designed to prevent sedimentation, blah, blah, blah. Again, in this case, the submersible mixer is not doing anything. It is also not stated who is responsible for the designing. In the majority of such cases, we can easily rewrite this requirement in the active voice to clearly state the need we have. The submersible mixer shall prevent sedimentation in the aeration zone of tank 414. This is the functional requirement for the submersible mixer. It states very clearly the function that the mixer needs to perform: the sizing, the manufacturing, the installation, and the testing. These are all responsibilities of whoever we have paid to deliver the functionality that we need. Let's say, for argument's sake, we are specifically interested in the sizing details of this mixer. We could once again fall into the trap of writing a fluffy, passive voice requirement. The submersible mixer shall be sized to prevent blah, blah, blah. If we know who needs to execute this requirement, then we can be specific and easily rewrite this requirement in the active voice. The contractor shall size the submersible mixer to blah, blah, blah. There is no need to be shy when writing requirements. After all, we are paying for this stuff. So we have a right to be perfectly clear on who needs to do what. Trust me, nobody will be offended by your directness. In fact, they will thank you for the clarity, as it will avoid countless clarifications. One more thing to note here: this requirement only gets us our sizing. There's nothing in here about actually manufacturing and installing the thing. A common flaw in requirements is getting in too many details too early in the design process. One absolute best practice to help you avoid falling into this trap is to start your requirements for any given system or any given thing or widget with the functional requirements in the active voice. These are the requirements that describe what the thing must do, and then, only then, ask yourself if you need to get into more specific details with additional requirements. Wow, that's been a lot of talking. Let's see if any of that came across. Which answer best describes how you are feeling right now? Now onto some real examples for you to work on. Grab the pen and paper, put on your thinking hats, and improve these requirements using what you have learned in Module 7 and previous modules. One hint: you can use a bit of artistic license if you feel you are missing any information in the requirements. Add whatever you feel is appropriate, but keep your requirements concise and precise. So remember, folks, in our requirements, we want to be clear and direct and state who or what needs to do the thing we need, the thing we are requiring with our requirement statement. We want Don Corleone and not Master Yoda. In most cases, the active voice needs to be the default voice used in your requirements writing. Call on your engineering judgment when using the passive voice, but please use the passive voice sparingly. That's it for now.
Handle the truth you cannot.